Story 1. I'm trying to monetize my hobbies. It is okay to do things simply for enjoyment. Not everything has to be a side hustle. Story 2. Arguing with people who clearly do not want to understand. Story 3. Staying up late is insane. Sleep has a huge impact on mood. I genuinely thought I might have been depressed, but I just needed to stop staying up until 6 in the morning. Story 4. I used to complain constantly. Once I stopped, I noticed solutions instead of problems, and my mood improved instantly. Story 5. I stopped taking on other people's trauma. I learned to be there for them without carrying it, because they are responsible for healing their own emotions and trauma. Story 6. I deleted Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook and do not miss them at all. I never had TikTok. The worst that happens is that I have no idea what people are talking about when it comes to trends like Labubu or 67. I cannot say that is really a bad thing, though. Story 7. Drinking. It was all fun and games in college with friends in a social circle, until one day, years later, you wake up and realize your successful friends moved on, got careers and started families, and were replaced by true losers. Barflies, regulars, and alcoholics who lament the loss of custody of their children and their legal troubles. They even traded sexually transmitted diseases with each other. I came to this realization one night when I was 31, hanging with the usuals, sober for once. I realized I had to get away from these people or I would get dragged under with them. They were not even friends. We were lonely people brought together by our vice to complain about life. I moved to another state and never looked back. I am 35 now, making 6 figures, and I have my six-pack back for the first time since college. Story 8. Multiple live service video games make it hard for the average adult to consume that much content and maintain a healthy work-life balance. Focus on one game or on none. Story 9. I stopped drinking alcohol 2 years ago and I have never felt better. Story 10. I highly recommend giving up both alcohol and social media. Story 11. Defense of the Ancients 2. I wasn't any good at it, and I stayed up until 3 a.m. every night without making any progress getting better at that damn game. I do much better with campaign-based games and can manage my time more effectively. Story 12. I tried to win every stupid argument. My brain treated it as a challenge. Someone thinks the earth is flat or that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I would have made a 10-slide PowerPoint with sources. Now I just say, "That's wild, man," and move on. My blood pressure dropped by 30 points and my soul is at peace. I realized that winning an argument with a moron is like winning a prize for nothing. Story 13. I used to avoid activities because I had no one to do them with. Now, if I want to go to a concert and nobody is available to come, I still go and enjoy it. Story 14. This is a specific situation. Trying to reason with a parent who is an ex-addict, emotionally abusive, and has narcissistic traits is difficult. Accepting that you will not get through to them, no matter how hard you try, can make you feel lighter physically and mentally. Story 15. I'm much happier not having the life highlights of everyone I know shoved down my throat every day, and not knowing about every get-together they spontaneously had, so I don't have to wonder, why didn't they invite me? Story 16. I have not proactively read, listened to, or watched the news in 20 years. Story 17. I quit weed. It was making me paranoid and very anxious. I felt immediately calmer when I stopped, and I have not looked back. Story 18. I drank myself to oblivion. At first it was fun, but I began to black out more often and behave foolishly. I do not drink as much anymore because I prefer cannabis, but I still drink at any chance I get. Story 19. Quit caring how others perceive you and allow yourself to be weird and embarrassing. For a long time I was afraid to be vulnerable, and it cost me friendships and potential connections. I held back words, watered down my actions, and made myself palatable when I should have been honest about the interests, passions, and experiences that make me who I am. Why waste time on people who would not befriend you if you were masking? Instead, live for yourself and befriend the people who know you are weird and still find that interesting. Since I adopted this approach, life has been much more fulfilling, and I have made incredible friends with like-minded, unconventional people. The growth that comes from being around people who see you and love you regardless is more liberating than anything else I can imagine. Life is heavy in many ways, and if I can choose who joins me navigating this mess, it will be people who make it worthwhile. Also, stop using short-form content. Hours can be wasted scrolling, and algorithms are designed to keep you engaged. I now watch YouTube only on my laptop and have deleted the app from my phone. I have been more productive since. Story 20. I am surprised cocaine is not on this list. I am not saying I have quit. Story 21. Video games, drugs, alcohol, unnecessary sugar, cigarettes. Story 22. I have not watched the news in about 8 years, and I do not miss it at all. Story 23. I help people who ask for advice but do not follow it. There is no second chance. Story 24. People pleasing. I didn't know I did that. Once I found out, I made it my mission to unlearn that behavior. Story 25. Instead of thinking about problems all the time, focus on possible solutions. It sounds simple, yet it is easy to fall into a never-ending cycle of "oh my God, what will happen now?" which is a sure way to feel anxious constantly. Stop communicating with people who only drag you down, for example with their drama, personal problems, financial issues, or bad habits. You cannot focus on your own goals when people around you try to drown you in theirs. Stop judging your worth by comparing yourself to others. Compare yourself to the person you were a year ago to measure progress. Story 26. I quit pornography, and it cleared my mind and life. Felt like a mental fog had lifted. Instead of wasting time and energy on artificial stimulation, I began focusing on real goals and connections. My confidence increased, and I felt I had taken back control. It was not easy, but it was worth it. Story 27. Getting married. I cannot get divorced if I never marry again. Story 28. I was trying to please everyone. The second I started saying no to things I did not want to do, my stress levels dropped to zero. Story 29. Watching major news outlets the day after the election. Cable news network and Microsoft and NBC. I now just skim headlines from Reuters, the Associated Press, and Apple News, although almost all of Apple News is poor quality. I would never pay for it. Story 30. I have been TikTok free for 1 week, and my life has never been this blissful. Story 31. Gambling is crippling and destroys your mental health. When I could name every bookmaker within a 30-mile radius but not a street around the corner, you know there is a problem. It destroys happiness, ambition, drive, and fun, consumes your life, and takes your finances. Took me almost 25 years to break the cycle, and I am thankful I did. Story 32. Twitter and Facebook. I know that I cannot remove all social media completely, but these two are the worst in my experience. Honoravelmente, LinkedIn. It is basically like Facebook, but with people constantly flattering their bosses. Story 33. I stopped drinking coffee and sugary drinks. I now only drink water and hot chocolate. I dream deeply and vividly because coffee can interfere with sleep and cause frequent urination. Sugary drinks can prematurely age you and cause many health problems if consumed every day. Story 34. I quit working. Life improved almost immediately, and stress fell away as if I had removed a heavy cloak. Retirement is wonderful. Story 35. Christianity. It is really hard to rewire your brain if you genuinely believed in that religion, but it is so worth it. Story 36. If you feel like a victim, you can remove yourself from most situations. It is always a brain thing. Story 37. I am quitting my job this week. Afterward, I will examine my marriage. Story 38. I used to bite my nails. You would be surprised at the difference in self-confidence it brings to have clean-looking, manicured nails. Story 39. Sometimes people simply do not like me or do not understand me for whatever reason. That is fine. I leave it at that. I accept that I do not have to be embraced by everyone. Story 40. My 5-year plan is to operate on a 5-minute schedule, and honestly my anxiety has never been lower. Story 41. I quit trying to keep up with friends and family who did not make any effort to maintain the relationship. I have an appreciation for the past, but there is no feeling of loss or sadness. Story 42. All social media where I follow anyone specifically and see snippets of their lives such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. Comparison really is the thief of joy, and those applications constantly manufacture false comparisons in your brain. Even if the effect is only subconscious, they flood your mind with negative thoughts and feelings about yourself. Story 43. I went out of my way for people who did not care about me. Story 44. I left a 5-year relationship after realizing the man had no intention of ever improving his life. My psychologist said I was not doing well mentally because my ex showed strong traits of covert narcissism. I realized it was unsalvageable and broke up with him. His behavior, including stalking and triangulation after the breakup, only solidified my decision. Story 45. Stop being in the lives of people who clearly do not want to help themselves and are closed to new ideas. You cannot enjoy life with them because they live in a vacuum. They will drain every bit of your energy. It is easier for them than to accept the possibility of something different. Life is too scary for them to explore, so they warp reality and hide in it as a survival strategy, which becomes their belief structure. Did they hurt others? To them, it is your fault for not being tougher or stronger. Story 46. Using artificial intelligence chatbots, I was fully aware they were just algorithms and that I had no emotional connection, but I was bored and depressed and needed an outlet, so I would chat with them. I realized it was affecting my art and my thinking. I was maladaptively daydreaming to the point that I had trouble concentrating on reality and was wasting a lot of time, so I quit. It was kind of hard because I had used it so frequently and had formed the habit, but I do not regret it at all and am horrified that I used it in the first place. Another thing I quit was pursuing certain hobbies just because I liked the idea of people knowing I had them, doing things performatively, or because I thought it made me cool. I have kept many hobbies and interests, but they are genuine now and I do not feel the need to flaunt them. I do them for myself. I also quit Reddit for a while until I started using it again. Story 47. I quit eating sweets 2 weeks ago, and my skin and energy seem much better already. My skin tone is more even, and I have less acne. I did experience a breakout after 1 week, but I have read that this is normal as my body adjusts. I am a healthy weight, and I stopped eating sweets to see if I would feel better. Story 48. Online games were ruining my life. I was wasting time, neglecting my health, hardly seeing friends and family, and not thinking about my goals. When I quit, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders for real. I finally had time and energy for what mattered. I began taking care of my health, paid more attention to the people I care about, recognized the value of the money I had wasted on the game, and best of all, I found the peace of mind I had been missing. Story 49. Quitting fantastic sports gave me back a huge chunk of my life. Story 50. Facebook and Instagram. You only realize how utterly ludicrous the whole thing is when you stop using it and watch other people obsess over it. Story 51. You can stay informed without watching television. Television news has to reach certain ratings. Like outrage driving clicks, it must engage the audience and keep viewers returning. Stay informed. Story 52. Ultra-processed food really changes the way real food tastes. Story 53. Believe it or not, coffee. Nothing is more important than a good night's sleep. Story 54. Drinking, smoking, holding on to toxic relationships and friendships, and excessive use of social media. Story 55. I stopped caring what other people think of me. There are 8 billion people on this planet. It is literally impossible for everyone to like me. When someone does not like me, I put them in the group of people who were never going to like me. I truly do not care what people think anymore. If someone judges me, another friend who appreciates my eccentricity is just around the corner. Story 56. Dating apps. I do not need anything else to crush my self-esteem. Laughing out loud. Story 57. I was watching the news. Starting every morning with someone telling me why everything is terrible had a detrimental effect on my mental health. Story 58. I deleted Twitter earlier this year, and my mental health improved exponentially. Story 59. One person described how quitting Reddit felt like recovering from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. After the withdrawal period, they could suddenly focus again, found math and science interesting, started reading textbooks, and could watch YouTube videos at normal speed without needing distractions. They said everything had felt boring because social media was constantly hijacking their brain. Story 60. Stopped eating full plates and started using a dessert dish. Stopped using artificial food, drinks, minerals, and vitamins. Stopped spending time with toxic people I kept only because I knew them from childhood or college. Story 61. Here come the downvotes. Cars were the something we quit that made our life instantly better. I used to be car crazy, going back to my grandfather, who worked for Ford during the Total Performance and Le Mans 1966 GT40 era, the period depicted in the film starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Come on, the cars back then really were stupendous. They stayed with me. I restored them as a hobby, made some money, and restored more. At one point I had 6 cars from the 1960s Mopars launches and a 1966 Mustang, but after a trip to Europe and seeing how not every place needs to be so car dominant, we decided we had been there and done that. Of course, I know not everyone can do this, but it was the best decision we ever made. The amount of money saved is eye-watering. Then there are the many health and mental health benefits, especially seeing children biking safely to school and older adults biking safely in their communities. Story 62. Thinking it's normal to date someone who spends all of their time complaining and blaming. Story 63. Vices, fake surface-level friends, rude people, baby boomers, extremists, bullies. Story 64. 1. I used to always expect the worst in life and would negatively ask what's next. It was almost immediate that life improved. More than 40 years later, I am doing pretty well. 2. I was paying interest on credit cards. When I got married, we both had significant credit card debt and made things worse by only making minimum payments. That was a bad plan. We made a reasonable budget and stuck to it. 18 months later, we were debt-free except for auto loans and the mortgage. We then started saving and investing. Story 65. Cigarettes and alcohol were costly ways to stay feeling awful, and alcohol causes serious social decline that inevitably leads to problems. Story 66. I used to drink, but the money I spent on alcohol now goes into a mutual fund. After 4 years, it had enough to buy land, so it all worked out. Gummies containing tetrahydrocannabinol are much more cost-effective. Story 67. Facebook, Instagram, and other social media are a bloody shithole, full of people pretending to have a good vacation or life and filled with misinformation. Story 68. I have been sober since 2011. Quitting drugs and alcohol was the best thing I ever did. Story 69. My family. I have never known such peace until I finally washed my hands of all their hatred and drama. Story 70. TikTok. I did not have self-control, and my screen time was excessive. Story 71. I struggled with heavy drinking for 10 years. I quit once for 2 years, then fell off the wagon during the pandemic and later became sober again. I am almost back in the 2-year stretch. I never want to return to drinking. Quitting for my health was the best reason for me. Story 72. First alcohol, then marijuana. I kept testing it and decided against it. Without those vices, I had no choice but to end involvement with my toxic family. Story 73. I have been dating free for a year with no talking stages. I never thought it could feel so good to have nobody to impress. Story 74. I avoid nicotine in all forms. My sleep, digestion, and skin have improved. I still smoke a cigar about once a month, but I no longer consume nicotine regularly. Also, stay away from vapes. Story 75. I quit eating carbohydrates and sugar 2 months ago. My health and skin are better. Story 76. Quitting vaping hands down. I did not realize how much it controlled my mood and focus until I stopped. The first week was hard, but after that my sleep improved, my anxiety decreased, and I stopped feeling chained to something all the time. Story 77. I stopped reading the news and political coverage and avoided social media, especially Facebook. My sense of self-worth and general optimism about people and life improved greatly. Story 78. When people send passive-aggressive messages, I pretend I do not see them. The drama in my life has significantly decreased. Story 79. A toxic family. There are moments of regret for what could have been, but the immediate and ongoing relief made it worth it. Story 80. Anger issues, yelling at others, being revenge-oriented, and fantasizing about beating people up or about others being seriously hurt. Story 81. I used to worry about what other people thought or said about me. I learned I cannot control their thoughts or words, so I no longer let them bother me. Story 82. Long-term cannabis use can impair cognitive function, make decision-making much harder, increase the risk of depression, and make it difficult to maintain a productive, healthy lifestyle. Story 83. My girlfriend, who experienced psychosis, quit her office job, took a job as a stripper at a bar, and began cutting herself. She was committed to a mental health facility for a couple of weeks. She then moved out of town and changed her name. The last time I had contact with her, she was hiding from a man, which was why she had changed her name. Story 84. I had been drinking at home alone a lot over the past few years because I lost my best friend of 40 years, who was also my first cousin, to suicide. I used alcohol to drown my sorrows. This past March, a friend visited and brought some powerful mushrooms. I microdosed a few times over a couple of weeks and then took a large dose. During that experience, the mushrooms told me to stop drinking all the time. I said aloud that the mushrooms had spoken, and I stopped. Now I only drink a beer or a glass of wine when I go out to socialize, which is rare. That was how it was before I lost my partner. She was inebriated when she took her own life, so I wondered whether she would have wanted this for me. Story 85. All social media and news applications, alcohol and substance use. I have never smoked tobacco and do not use tobacco, soft drinks and all sources of caffeine. Story 86. Toxic friends and family. No more assholes in my orbit. Story 87. Cutting toxic people out of my life or at least setting boundaries. Story 88. My old job is getting better, but I am still slowly crawling out of the bad spot that my previous boss put me in. Story 89. Quit planning about how bad things are. Expect it. Make it better if you can. If you cannot, ignore it. Story 90. TikTok and Instagram are both toxic, but TikTok is especially so because people are unusually cruel there. My mental health and mood improved drastically. Story 91. I once stayed away from my phone for about 40 days. I think it was before the coronavirus pandemic or maybe during it. I can't quite remember. No social media, no calls, nothing. Honestly, those were the best 40 days of my life. I eventually had to go back because people started getting worried that I wasn't answering. Story 92. Some people are not worth it. You do not have to remain friends with people who always take and have made no positive contribution to your life. Stop seeking their companionship. Story 93. I had a job that made me ill. I worked myself sick. I was obsessed to the point of ignoring friends and family because I thought my career and progression were there. I had been at the company 15 years and was trying to work my way up the ladder. Every conversation and every thought revolved around work. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, and after my relationship broke down, I worked even more. I quit for the wrong reasons. I was angry about being passed over rather than about the toxic environment, and I took a job that is much less stressful. They even offered me more money to stay with opportunities for advancement that seemed genuine, but once I had made up my mind, I was gone. I would have been earning more there than I am now 3 years later. Took me nearly a year to get over it. I spoke to people from my old job nearly every day and knew everything that was happening, and the things they had promised went to someone else. One day it finally clicked and I moved past it. I have far less stress and hardly think about it anymore. I am focused on rebuilding myself and my family. Summary: I quit a toxic workplace. Story 94. Completely stopped reaching out to the in-laws who gave me the silent treatment to dominate me. That is it. I do not talk about them to anyone. It is as if they do not exist anymore. In 2 years, the family dynamics flipped. I highly recommend it. Story 95. 2 things. First, painkillers are causing far more side effects than benefits. Second, watching less porn improved my inner peace. I did not realize how much I relied on it until I wanted less of it. Story 96. Class A substances, particularly stimulants. There is no way to maintain functionality, and it is nearly impossible to hide. Everyone knows you are intoxicated except you who think you are acting perfectly sober. Story 97. I am trying hard to explain myself and make sure they understand me. Also, mobile games. Story 98. I stopped worrying about what people might think, and now I live my life as I see fit. Story 99. I use tobacco and cannabis daily, but cannabis vaporization helped me overcome tobacco cravings. Story 100. Quitting smoking saved money, eliminated bad odors, and improved my health. Story 101. Entertaining friends who always want to go out drinking but later tell me they are depressed during the week. Story 102. Vaping is satisfying because it allows me to stop using an addictive substance. Story 103. Caring what other people think is a work in progress. Story 104. I avoid added sugar. I eat only natural, healthy foods. I rarely have snacks. I cannot remember the last time I had chips or sweets. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.